Rolling. 5, 4.
All right, so for this rendering, we are going to have some wood panels behind the sofa and then also a wood floor. I went ahead and removed the overlay I did showing the breaks in the floor. I'm going to go in and add those later. So let's go ahead and start adding some color. And of course, just like with everything else, first thing to think about is light side, dark side, medium side, and where your light source is coming from. So as you know, I like to draw a little cube on the ground so that I can remind myself. I'm going to have my light side be the top. That's going to be light. I'm going to have my medium side be right on the front here. That's so that we can read it. And then for my dark side, I'm going to go over here where that's really dark. And of course, dark side is where we would find cast shadow, so I can also add a little cast shadow on the ground. Okay, so I'm going to start off with my sofas. Just going to put down a little bit of, I'm using warm gray 3 right now for my light sides. And I'm going to skip over to warm gray number 5 for my front surfaces, which would be my medium side. Definitely want to see a change in the value between the seat and the back of the sofa. You should always have a change there. And then for my dark side, I am going to use a warm, is this a 6? Let's see how this looks. I think that's enough of a change for right now. We can always make that darker if we want to. That's the great thing about marker is that you can always change it. Okay, let's go ahead and let's see, use my warm 3 here to just kind of maybe soften that a little bit. Since that's not a sharp edge, it's more of a soft edge, so I want to soften it a little. Okay, let's go ahead and add a little bit of color to those pillows and the throw. I'm going to use kind of a blue-green color, and putting some color on the edges, and then I'm going to soften it by using a much lighter version of the same color. You don't want your pillows to look like bricks, you want them to look soft. So leave some white space. It's going to be darker usually on the edges and then lighter in the center. And then of course those are going to cast some shadows onto the sofa, so you can go in and get some dark shadows right here. Those seem too dark to me. I'm going to soften them a little bit. I think I used a warm gray 9, so now I'm going to go back in with a 6. Soften and blend a little. This throw that I have over here is really just a series of cylinders that are laying on their side. I know we've spent some time practicing cylinders, so pretty good at that. Additionally, that's going to also cast a shadow. So let's go ahead and add one in right there. And the window treatment is also, it's just cylinders, that's all it is there. Actually, one of the easiest things to do is window treatments. So we know that cylinders are darker on the sides, lighter in the center, so you can just go ahead and make a bunch of vertical lines and then soften them up with a lighter color and let them just stay the white of the paper in the center. Should be pretty convincing. All right. I'm going to just put kind of a light-ish tone on that back wall maybe a warm 2. Oh, that's not a warm 2. Just a good example of how we can erase. Just get a lighter color and lift it up. Just going to kind of blend it out. I think just about ready to start on the wood. So for the wood panels in the background, what we're going to want to do is pick 3 different colors, a dark, medium, and a light. I'm using E59 and E57. And let's try maybe E55. And it's actually kind of good if you use markers that are running out and are kind of streaky. Actually looks nice when you're doing wood. So it's a good time to use your markers that are kind of running out. And so I want my streaks to go in the direction of the vanishing point. I don't want to do them all crazy. I want them to still kind of go in the right direction. Nothing too regular. I always start off with the darkest one and then add the medium. See, this one is dying. You see that streakiness actually kind of looks like wood, so I don't mind at all. And I'm going to go back in with my latest one and kind of blend everything together. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking light side, dark side, medium side, that this edge has to be darker. And you're right. So I'm just going to go ahead, my darkest brown, just do that. All right. One thing that I can do now is maybe add a little cast shadow onto the wall before I forget about it. Let's try warm 6 right here. So this is a shadow from those wood panels. I don't know if that's dark enough. Let's do it again. Onto the wall. There we go. And now we can go in and you can see that these panels have a little bit of a recess. The marker appears to be broken. So I'm going to use my darkest wood color, which is the E59, to get those recesses. That's going to leave a little shadow line. Great. And to just kind of finish off that wood, I'm going to add a little bit of brown colored pencil. Just kind of make some lines. It's really not too perfect. Just something to represent a little bit of wood grain. Nothing too dark. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and add some wood onto the floor as well. I'm just going to use my same colors. Just kind of like the way those came out. I'm going to apply the colors in the direction of the wood again, in the direction of those planks that we found in the earlier video. It doesn't have to be perfect. As you can see, I don't even have that overlay on right now. So once we go back in after we get the color, can add those lines and then it'll be perfect. But just kind of in that general direction for right now will be fine. Dark, let's go to medium. Medium drying out, dyeing marker. It's actually good for wood floors. And blend it all together with light. else do we still have to do? Oh, we have to do the plant in the corner, and this piece of furniture over here. I think I'm going to switch to cool grays. For the piece of furniture over here, I'm going to use a cool gray 4. You know the top is the lightest, so I can go with cool gray. It's like a cool gray 1, not sure how much this will even show up. And then of course the side would be darker. This side over here would be the darkest. I feel like this should be maybe stainless steel, something kind of shiny. Bring in some information from our last module that we did. Keep it kind of streaky. And add some darks to it. A little. And if this is going to be reflective surface, then we can even just bring those right down. Of course, I have a little shadow. See, those look like some sort of sticks. Let's give them a little bit of color. So we're just always going back and blending all our values together. All right. I think we can go ahead and, oh I know, let's do that plant right there. Looks like, let's make this stainless or silver as well by adding some dark values and then some light ones. And just like every other rounded object that we've talked about thus far, darker around the sides, lighter closer to you, which would be in the center. And then in order to get the foliage, we're going to add some green. And the best way to render it is actually to just kind of dab with your marker. And rather than trying to draw individual leaves. I'm going to go in maybe with some warm grays to try and maybe bring down the green a little bit. It's a little bit much. The whole idea is for it to just kind of be in the background and not be too overwhelming. Because I don't have the right greens with me, I'm just trying to kind of make my own, and you know what? I think that's fine. Okay. Draw some kind of structure to the tree here. Well, something like that. Okay. Now let's go ahead and do the exterior, which I'm going to do on the back. I'm going to do a couple things on the back actually. What I'm going to do is the exterior, I'm going to do a little cityscape, and then I'm also going to add some reflections. You know what, before I add my reflections, let me add the feet to the furniture so I know where they are. And the fronts of those feet will be flip it over. So now what I want to do is work on doing a little cityscape in the background, just like we've done in the past. Nothing's going to draw your attention away from the rest of the drawing, but maybe just some big gray boxes. And even though they're big gray boxes, they're still going to have a light side, dark side, medium side, just like everything else in the world. So I'll make sure that one side is darker than the other. Maybe a other one. Let's do some warm ones on here. I still had some green on there. That's why you should always clean off your pens or markers. Wow. A little green will look nice. I think that's good enough. Let's take a look at doing some reflections in the floor. Obviously, wood is not as reflective as something that's metallic, but you're still going to have some reflections. So, first thing I'm going to do is bring down all these little feet, straight down. In the book we talk about figuring out reflections. I believe it's chapter 8, which you can review if you're having trouble figuring this out. But it's definitely something that you want to eyeball and not spend too much time on. Doing these vertical reflections, which is, of course, the easiest kind to do. And you can even bring down some of that, the wall, vertical. Always bring down your verticals whenever you can. All right, we're ready to go back to the front. Something I haven't done yet that I need to do is add a tone to the ceiling. Just something that's not going to be too noticeable. Actually make it darker in the corner, so doing like a warm 3, and then I'm going to switch to a warm 2 to blend it out. You could even just use a colorless blender if you wanted. Let me give it a little bit of tone to the ceiling, not too much. Want it to be mostly unnoticeable. Go. Let's see. Something I haven't done yet that I want to do is add some color to the sky. I'm feeling like it's nighttime. Let's go ahead and add some dark blue. I'm gonna let it get a little bit lighter as it gets closer to the horizon. So it's darker higher up and lighter as it gets down. I'm going to put some glass in front of that on the other side of the paper, so just leave it like this for now. Let's see, what should we do next? Well, I guess we could go ahead and add the lines in the floor. Oh, I never added any grain to the floor, which is something I could do with my pencil. Once again, just kind of nothing too specific, just using the brown color pencil to make some marks, give some texture, like that. Let's see, what are some other things I can do here? I can add some shadows, definitely. Everything needs shadows. I'm going to use my warm grays because I'm working with brown, which is obviously warm. So let's go ahead and add, make sure I have this exactly where I want it. Okay, I'm going to add shadow right there. And I kind of made a little bit of a mistake. Smooth that out. There we go. And I'm using a warm gray 9, which is pretty dark. Okay, so let's finish adding our shadows here. Another good place to put shadow would be right over here from the window treatment onto the glass. This is one of those things that's going to help us read that as a window and not artwork. A shadow there. I think I can also put a shadow onto the wall. Right there. Now I feel like the shadow is not quite as dark as the others, so I'll add a little bit. I feel like I want to blur that out just a little bit. So I'm sure you've noticed by now, markers are very much a back and forth type of thing where you can keep adding and subtracting, especially if you're using a paper like tracing paper that's very forgiving, that lets you move around the marker much like paint. Like this needs to be darker. Oh yeah, that's, I think, helping with the illusion of space. It's a little darker, which means I now have to make this a little darker too. And that as well, that as well. Okay, let's go ahead and work a little bit more on the floor. I think it's time to bring in those marks that we made earlier. This is really going to bring the whole thing together when we add this. Okay, make sure that this is on right. About like that. Okay, I'm just going to tape this down, and then we're going to use a black pen to find all of those separations in the floor. So I'm going to use my triangle and a black pen. And I'm just going to trace over those lines that I made before. Oh, look at that. I went past the floor and into the window. That's okay, I can fix that. No problem. I went a little too quickly. If you draw too quickly with these pens, nothing comes out, so you have to make kind of slow, straight lines. At the end, I'm going to frame this out with a thick line. So I'm not really worrying right now about where these lines are starting and stopping. I just want them to be correct. Too quick. I'm also going to find some of my lines with this pen at the very end. Find some of the lines in the furniture that may have gotten lost. We can get rid of that underlay. It's a little bit confusing with all of these different lines and different colors, so Get rid of it. Put this one back. There we go. So I need to go back and find some of those lines that I've lost. I also need to maybe add some reflections in. Oops, it's not quite right. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna go find a couple of these lines, especially anything on the bottom, like right here. You can always make nice, thick lines. And I think it would be good to find the spot where the wall, I'm sorry, where the window meets the ceiling. And maybe we can draw in some of these freehand, some of these lines. This is one we'd want to use a straight edge for, right here. And here. Some people like to trace over every line. Other people like to choose the lines carefully that they're going to be tracing. There's an important one right there. I think some of these I'd rather just do freehand, like that. So I don't want it to look too perfect. If I wanted it too perfect, then I would have used a computer instead of drawing it by hand. It's kind of important right here, separating the sofa from the wall. This. I think it's kind of going to suggest a little bit right there. Oops. I think it's time to add some reflections. Let's use our whiteout pen again, which is always a fun thing to do. I love adding reflections. It's the best part. Really brings the whole piece together. I'm going to use a combination of a white pencil and my whiteout pen. I love to bring down anything that's vertical. Just make sure your lines are always going back to your vanishing point, and you really can't go wrong. Because it's very rare that anyone would ever look at your reflections or your shadows for that matter and say, that doesn't look right, that's not really how it would work, because of course it all depends on lighting, and lighting is always changing, and it's very rare that you have just one source of lighting in a space anyway. Let's see, I guess I could add some reflections to some of this shiny stainless steel material, silvery material we've got over here. And of course, just a couple little spots. These wood panels I think would also look nice. And also adding to the reveals the dark pencil. It's gonna really make it look nice and really make it pop. think one thing that I would like to do is add just a little bit of white to the window. And just blur it out a little bit. I'll make that look more like glass. And I think, you know, there are a couple of opportunities. I could probably work on this all day, to be honest with you. A couple little areas where we could add some shadows. That was too dark. Blend it out a little. I think this is just about done. One more thing to do before we call this done. Let's go ahead and frame out our view. A nice dark line. Let's do one there. Let's do one here. And you never want to have, I wouldn't want to do this because it's going to create a weird tangent where that line ends. I want to make sure that I either go above or below. In this case, I'm going to go above it. Let's add this one, I think right about here. All right, now we're done.